What's going on, everybody? This is Andrew coming at you from the Sky Pillar with a deck profile of the Drampa Garb list I used to win the Greensboro Regional Championship with. Now, Drampa Garb's been a deck for a long time. It doesn't see really any play in Standard because it just doesn't have the same types of cards it used to, but in Expanded, of course, we have all those cards and more. So, really good at punishing decks with abilities and items, which seems to be the format at the moment. A lot of this list was taken from Blaine Hill's third place Drampa Garb list from Dallas, and I thought that list was insane, so I decided to use it and made a few changes for the meta, and I'm going to be sharing all this with you in this video. So let's get into the list. Okay, so let's get into the deck. So we play 2 copies of Drampa GX. We mostly use this against Zork. With the Righteous Edge, does 20, discards special energy. We want to be able to mill double colors energies. And Berserk isn't too bad either, so it does 80 and then 70 more if I have a damaged Pokemon on my bench. So 150, twice spam 180. So we can use that to two-shot Zoroark, we can use it to knock out Lele, etc. So really good card in the deck. And then we have Big Wheel GX, which is shuffle your hand, draw 10 for your GX attack. Not bad against decks where, I mean, like if you get like red carded and you can't do anything off of it, you can use Drampa to get out of that. I guess I forgot to mention Berserk's also really good into Trev because they have 160 HP, which is kind of annoying. So usually you want to go Righteous Edge for 20, and then Berserk for 150, since they do Silent Future spread. You can attach a Muscle Band to it too, and you get the knockout. So card's got a few good uses, and that's why we run like the 2 copies. Then we play 4 copies of Trebush, which we play Garbodor decks. We got to evolve them somehow. But the cool thing about this deck is you actually can optimize your basics, which is really nice. You don't always get that option. So we play 2 copies, but that's why we play 3. So we have 2 copies of the Acid Spray Trebush, which does 10 damage and flip a coin, and if heads, discard energy. So we can use that to sort of, if someone's sort of starting to attach to their active, and we start this, we can attach Psychic, put some damage on there, and mill the energy, which is really good. And then we play 1 copy of the Stomp Off Trebush. Stomp Off allows us to mill the top card of the deck, which can be good to get items in the discard. It can be good if our opponent's trying to play their deck down to 1 card. You can just mill them right off the bat. So you have this win condition now, where if they ever have 1 card in the deck, you can just win the game for pretty much a card that would just be in the deck anyway. It's a really good option. And then we play the Garbage Collection Trebush. Garbage Collection lets us put a card from our discard pile on top of our deck. You can use that to grab cards like Juniper. When we're dead drawing, we can use it to grab resources that maybe we just had to discard early and we don't have any better attack to use. So I like having the 1 copy. It does only have 60 HP though, so it's kind of frail. That's why we only run 1. As for Garbodors, we run 2 of the Trashlands Garbodor. Trashlands is kind of the star of the show. Does 20 damage times the amount of items in your opponent's discard. In the expanded format, there are a lot of items being played. Of course, you have Battle Compressor, VS Seeker, Order Pad, tons of items. Decks like Archie's Blastoise are a perfect example, where they play almost up to like 15 items by the end of the game, and you're one-shotting a Wailord GX, which feels really good, but kind of shows how the format is right now and why this card is played. And then we play 2 copies of Garbotoxin Garbodor, which shuts off abilities whenever there's a tool card attached to it. Obviously good against decks like Zoroark, who are very ability reliant to use trade to draw, and Archie's Blastoise, decks who need the abilities to attach their energy. So you put these 2 together, combat the format really well. And then we play 1 copy of Sigil FGX. Got a lot of praise for this card over the weekend. It's used in a surprising amount of matchups, just for its GX attack, which I'll get into, and its ability, which basically says if it's attacked by an EX or GX, the damage done to it is also done to the attacking Pokemon. So if someone hits into this for 70, let's say, the 70 damage will go right back to it if it's an EX or GX. So I used it a lot against decks like Pikarom because it factors in weakness. So if Pikarom uses like full blitz, for what would be 300 with weakness, you end up doing 300 back to a Pikarom, and you end up getting 3 prizes off that. So that exchange is really nice. Of course, can be countered by cards like Silent Lab, so you got to be careful when you use it, but it also stops your opponent from kind of bringing this up and pinging it first while you're trying to set it up. So like if I had an opponent try to knock this out while I'm trying to set up for an Intercept GX, they'll end up doing damage to themselves if they're trying to hit me with like with an EX or GX. So allows you to just take knockouts with Garbodor more easily. Now Sonic Wing, I'll cover that briefly. 80 damage, not affected by resistance, so good against Arc. You can find weird ways to use it. It's just kind of a neutral attack. not bad. Now Intercept GX does 60 damage times the amount of energy attached to your opponent's active, which is really good math. Has 5 energies on Wailord, is 300. 4 energies on an EV Snorlax. Choice band is 270, so those 2 cards alone make this card worth running. If a Pikarom ever attaches 4 energies, you can hit 240. So really good for those matchups. I think this card kind of rounds out the deck in the format. Over there. Next, we play 2 copies of Tapu Lele GX. I mean, most decks run Lele. We actually can use Lele's for an attacker too, because Energy Drive is really good for 2-shotting. So we'll usually go like DCE, Choice Band, Energy Drive. They get hit. If they hit the Lele, we can just go Acerola, do it again. So that's useful against decks like Zoroark. Also, maybe good against Pikarom if you're trying to like set up a 2-shot knockout. Obviously, not when you're going to Tag Bolt, but you can find lots of uses for it. We also technically can use Tapu Cure. It didn't really come up this weekend, but Tapu Cure lets you heal Pokemon from your bench. So trying to eliminate a win condition, that's one way to do it. So now we got our tech cards here. I'll go through them briefly. Mr. Mime's there to just help us against Pikarom, because it prevents all bench damage. So it's also good against Wailord, because you can use the GXU, they knock out your Garbotoxin. But usually they're under ability lock anyway, so not as useful there, but useful against Pikarom because this thing is a liability. It's 170 HP, sadly, so if they Guzma Tag Bolt, you don't want this thing getting hit, so you play the 1 copy of Bench Barrier to mitigate that. Then you put 1 copy of Roblox Sudowoodo for Zoroark to keep their bench down to 4. You can use it in other matchups too, if like maybe they overbench or something, you can just shut down that 5th bench spot. It's pretty nice. Oricorio there for Night March and Night March and Vespiquen, excuse me, because it puts a damage counter for each Pokemon in the discard. We also use it against Zorogarb, who if they get a lot of Pokemon in the discard, we can use that to maybe take out a knockout, maybe clean up an Egg or a Shaman. And Revelation Dance, I use it a lot against Hitmonchan, because if they put their Shrine, you put your Parallel, and you put a Muscle Band on this, you can do 100 damage, which it's resistant to fighting, so they don't really have a good follow-up to it. Then you put 1 copy of By Barricade, which Wobbuffet, which is, as long as it's inactive, shuts off all non-psychic type abilities. So Archie's Blastoise, the Blastoise can't use Deluge, you can't use Setup on Shaman, and Zoroark can't use Trade. Actually, really good against Pikarom, because they like using the free retreat option, so you cut down that whole line of play and slow them down. So card's really good. That is it for Pokemon. So as you can see, we don't play really any like draw Pokemon. It's all just like attackers and techs. So supporters are going to be really important in this deck. So to start things off, 4 copies of N, which you probably guess would be in a Garbodor deck. We want to use N to shuffle our opponent's hand, make them draw like less cards, because we aren't very aggressive, so we aren't usually the ones taking the first prize. You never want to be overly aggressive in this deck. So N allows us to use Garbotoxin more effectively too. So it's against Zoroark. Let's just say they're down to three prizes. We can use Garbotoxin and use N, and then they have to draw 3 cards, and if they don't draw anything good off of it, they have a harder time digging for more. Really good card, kind of like the whole central part of the deck. We do play 3 copies of Juniper. That's more for just a little more aggressive draw. Discard our hand, draw 7. It's good for thinning out the deck. But you gotta be careful with Juniper, because you're discarding resources. You gotta make sure that if you're gonna play it, you're comfortable with discarding certain cards. So we definitely don't want to Juniper all our VS Seekers away early. So we watch out when we're gonna play this card. And then to round out the draw, 1 copy of Colress. Colress lets us draw a card for each, or shuffle draw for each Pokemon on both mine and my opponent's bench. So good against Zoroark, who plays Skyfield. I think the most I Colress for this weekend was 14 cards, which was really cool. But yeah, Colress gives us the most draw option, but we only want to play 1 because it's really bad in your opening hand if you're going first, because drawing 2 cards really isn't that good, as opposed to maybe even just drawing 6. Now for support, we play Bridget. Bridget lets us grab either 1 basic EX, which we don't play any, or 3 non-EXs, including GXs, basic Pokemon, and put them on our bench. So we can this is our way of searching out Sudo and Drampa GX, and also it's our way of getting set up. So we can grab Trubbish this way, we can get Mr. Mime out this way. Very good card for setting up in general. And then we put 1 copy of Guzma. Guzma just allows us to grab our opponent's Pokemon and put them from the bench to active. It switches one of our own, but we play Floatstone, so it's not really a big deal. Then we play one copy of Acerola for healing. Allows us to spam Righteous Edge, which can be really annoying for our opponent, but hey, it's how we stay in the game, so really good for that. And we play one copy of Rainbow Energy, so we can use Acerola to pivot as well. Then we play one copy of Teammates. Teammates, of course, gets us 2 cards from our deck if one of our Pokemon was knocked out on our opponent's turn. So I'll use Teammates to like sort of just like grab game if I don't have it in hand, or allows me to really just like if I need to grab Parallel on a turn, Teammates just guarantees I hit it. So you really want this card to make sure you always have the response. And that's it for our supporters. Next, we'll go into our item cards with 4 copies of Mysterious Treasure. Now, you might be wondering why we don't play 2 Ultra Ball in this deck, because we do. We don't play just Psychic type Pokemon, but they're really only relevant in a few matchups, so we can get away with just playing 4 Treasure. And we can search out those Pokemon anyway from like Bridget, Teammates, Computer Search, so the best value we get out of Mysterious Treasure is not having to discard 2 cards, because we only discard 1 with Treasure. And that probably makes sense after looking at our draw support. We aren't like Zorak where we can trade and draw like X cards per turn and have all these resources to sort of discard. And we don't really play eggs either, so whatever we discard, it's something from our deck that we need. So rather than discarding 2 cards for grabbing a Garbodor, we can just always guarantee we're going to have the Mysterious Treasure and discard the 1. So it allows us to be a little bit more consistent, keep those resources in the deck. Speaking of resources, we play 3 copies of VS Seeker, which allows us to grab supporters from our discard pile and put them in our hand. We want to use these like pretty conservatively, because we only play 3 copies of them. That's all you can really squeeze in here. But we want to make sure we can grab, Guzma. We want to make sure we can grab N to end our opponent to low. It's a very good card though. It's in play in like every deck, so you can imagine why. Then we play for recovery 2. We play 1 copy of Super Rod, which shuffles any combination of 3 Pokemon or 3 energy. So it allows us to maybe get an energy and a Garb and a Trebush or something, or allows us to maybe get 3 psychic energies back. Allows us to keep our pretty much the big key is the energy, of course. Then we play 1 copy of Stretcher, which I can either put a Pokemon from a discard in my hand or shuffle 3 back in. So kind of like Super Rod, except I can grab maybe I just need to set up a Garbodor, so I just need a Stretcher for a Garb. So we play the 2 because sometimes 1 gets discarded, or you have to use 1 early and you want to make sure you have enough recovery for the rest of the game. So we play 1 copy of each just to round it out. Then we play 1 copy of Adventure Bag, which I think is really good in this deck. Obviously, that's why I played it. Adventure Bag says I can grab 2 tool cards from my deck and put them in my hand. In this deck, you don't have a lot of deck thinning options because we can't play Battle Compressor and we don't have enough space. So this allows me to fill the need of getting Garbotoxin out faster, because I can grab Float Stones and Muscle Bands, Choice Band. But also, they're out of my deck now. So like those 2 cards I probably didn't want to draw into, I have them now. Also, I can use it with Teammates. I can Teammates grab, let's just say I need to grab Garbotoxin and a Float Stone. I can grab this and get also maybe Choice Band with it, take a knockout. So really good for that reason. I think like the card's super valuable in the deck. I don't think I'd cut it. I definitely got a lot of use out of it. Now for tools, we play 4 copies of Float Stone, simply because we want free retreat on our Garbotox and Garbodor, so it's like the best tool to be on there. Also, like you need to pivot a lot in this deck, so having Float Stones never ever going to be bad. Then we play for modifiers 2 Choice Band, 1 Muscle. We play the 1 Muscle Band because there's a lot of 1 parts in the format we're trying to knock out quickly, so it allows us to deal with things like Trevenant, deal with things like Hitmonchan, and also dealing with what's this? Stand and Zorak. That's the big one, because that's a card you don't really ever hit 100 in this deck, so having the extra 20 can be really useful, especially with cards like Adventure Bag to grab it. And to top it off, 1 copy of Computer Search. I used to play Dowsing Machine in this deck, but then I saw they were playing Computer Search, and it made sense because you can just grab game with Computer Search. Can't do that necessarily with Dowsing. You also I think in this deck too, you just have a lot of situations where you let's just say I Colress and I didn't find the energy, but I found Computer Search, boom, I get the energy. Where if I found Dowsing Machine, I wouldn't be able to get anywhere. So Computer Search just kind of rounds out the deck. It makes it a lot more consistent because you have this free search option that can be any card in the deck. Discarding 2 really isn't that bad if you're getting exactly what you need. So I think this is the ace spec you should play in the deck. I don't think Dowsing's as good. And then last, trainer card we play is Parallel City. It's our stadium card. We play 3 copies to deal with the Zoroark decks. Of course, Parallel affects has 2 sides of it that affect each player. So depending on what color is facing. So if the blue side, usually put the blue side towards our opponent, which limits their bench spot to 3. And the strategy is Zoroark fills their bench with Skyfield. We want to play Parallel to discard their Pokemon and limit their bench to limit their damage. Makes sense, right? The red side is less useful, but it doesn't affect us at all because it reduces damage by fire, water, and grass types by 20, and we don't have any of those in the deck. So we can sort of just put the blue side against our opponent freely and not have any repercussions on our side. You can technically use it against decks like Vespiquen or Archie's or Seismitoad, I guess, if you want to limit the damage, but you know, you can see we don't play any field blowers, so you're committing yourself to 3 bench. So I've done it before, but usually like it's better just to put the blue side against it. But you know, you have that option. If you can prevent a knockout, definitely go for it. So Parallel is really good in this deck. Kind of puts the whole Garbotoxin in play even farther when you limit their bench. And then last but not least is Energy. We play 5 copies of Psychic Energy, 1 copy of Rainbow Energy, and 4 copies of Double Catalyst. So 10 energy cards, which might seem a lot. It's really not. I think this is just enough. So in this deck, I don't know if I said it, but I probably said it. Whiffing generally means you lose in this deck. If I need to hit Psychic Energy for Garbodor and I miss it, it's really bad because it's hard for me to keep game pace. So we want to make sure we have enough energy to play to like always stay in the game. The 1 Rainbow Energy allows us to activate Berserk even if our opponent isn't attacking, which is really good if they get a bad start. We need to just keep capitalizing on the momentum. You can play Rainbow Energy down and then boom, Drampa's hitting 180. We can knock out a Lele or something. The Double Colors Energy is obviously just mainly for Drampa and Sigilif and Lele. We don't really use it too much of Garbodor, even though you can. But we usually want to use these early game, and we usually want to save these for later. So my first attachments are usually going to be DCEs. Unless I know they play like Faba or special, and I need the energy now or something. But usually we want these early game, we want these late game is how that works. And yeah, that is the entire deck in a nutshell. Again, I think this deck's really good. I've played it pretty much the whole time this season for Expanded, and I've gotten a lot of good results out of it. I think just being able to like control abilities and punish items it pretty much defines Expanded in a nutshell. I think the picking our matchup's okay. I know a lot of people were like worried about it, but I think it's winnable. I think you just have to make sure you know what you're doing. And if you don't, I actually just finished an article on this deck that you can read on my website, skypillartcg.com. I'll link everything down below. And if you like the content, please feel free to subscribe. I'm going to be having more content in the standard format for Denver, which is the next region I'm going for. So be on the lookout for that. Leave a like. I appreciate it. Thank you for watching. And I guess I'll catch you guys next time. Like I said, this is Andrew from the Sky Pillar. And I'll see you later.